Good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. Rebecca, would you please call the roll?
Hallie?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Council. First, we're going to have a swearing-in ceremony for two new officers for the Fairfield Police Department. So I'm going to move over here towards the podium, and I'm going to ask Morgan Perry to join me. Oops. Good evening. How are you? Good. Stand right there. And we're going to do the oath of office and face me. And raise your right hand, and then repeat. I state your name.
I, Morgan Perry,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of police officer
discharge all the duties of police officer
in the city of Fairfield,
in the city of Fairfield,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My name is Morgan Perry. I'm originally from Fort Wayne, Indiana area. With me are my parents. They came from Indiana, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to serve the community.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Morgan. Appreciate it. Mr. and Mrs. Perry, are you here? Could you stand up, please? Thank you very much. Next, Mark Lord. Mark? You do? Nice to meet you. Okay, so oath of office, you raise your right hand. I, and state your name,
I, Mark Lord,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties of police officer
discharge the duties of police officer
in the city of Fairfield,
in the city of Fairfield,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations.
I'm Mark Lord. I'm originally from Claremore, Oklahoma. I moved up here a little over 13 years ago after I met my beautiful wife. I've had 3 gorgeous kids and a niece. I won't forget you, Paisley. And this has been my dream job. My wife finally told me I can go after it, so here I am working for the city of Fairfield.
Thank you.
Okay, we're happy to have you. So, officer, if we could have your family stand up just to be recognized too.
Oh, wow.
Thank you all for coming. You're invited to stay for the rest of the meeting or to go ahead and celebrate with your family. So you're not going to offend us. Because now comes the boring part. This is the Okay, Council, we'll proceed with the meeting. Before we go to our consent agenda, are there any additions to this evening's agenda? If not, we'll move to our consent agenda. We have approval of the minutes from the May 28th council meeting, approval of the May 31st payroll of $122,996.30, approval of the May finance report, approval of the USDA Step 1 debt in the amount of $64,875 covering January through May, approval of the CoBank interim financing debt in the amount of $189,172.54 covering the months of December 18 through May, approval of general obligation debt in the amount of $1,185,363.75, approval of the state revolving fund debt in the amount of $667,116.25. We have a resolution of part-time employment for Parks and Recreation. We have a resolution of employment in the police department, a communications specialist. Liquor license approvals for this evening: Fairfield Fast and Fresh, Come and Go number 134, Cafe Paradiso, and Shokai. Approval of claims in the amount of $920,638.13, of which 2 claims above $75,000 for DC Concrete and Construction, $77,168.20, and PKG Contracting, $531,667.49. Any questions, council, regarding those consent agenda items? Not entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Thompson.
Second.
Second by Rasmussen. Please call the roll.
Thompson?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes, but I need to abstain from the minutes of May 28th.
Okay. Gandy?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Now, council, we'll move to our resolutions, action items, and ordinances. And the first are the acceptance of 2 paving projects as final. I believe Matt Walker from French Rent-A-Car is here. Matt, if you could tell us about the 2 projects. First one being Adams Avenue paving project.
Sure. The first one we have tonight is Adams Avenue. As you know, the street was completed last fall. I believe it was in November. We kind of reduced some of the retainage and we just held back for the seeding. They came back and seeded it a couple of weeks ago, so everything's starting to grow good, so everything is ready to be accepted.
Okay. With that recommendation, council, I'd entertain a motion to accept the Adams Avenue paving project.
So moved.
Moved by Anderson.
Second.
Second by Gandy. Discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Thank you. And then we'll move to the Tyler Street paving project.
Again, this project was completed last October, November. They seeded it last fall, but we wanted to hold back some of the retainage to make sure that the grass was established. In the spring, it came up very nicely. So again, it's all complete and it's ready to be accepted.
Great. Thank you, Matt. We appreciate that. Upon that recommendation, entertain a motion to approve and accept the paving project for Tyler Street as final.
So moved.
Moved by Anderson, second by Gandy. Any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Okay. All right. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. The next, council, we have a public hearing, and this is on the contract documents and estimated costs for North 8th Street and Stone Street water main replacement. Melanie, would you have anything before we open the public hearing to tell the council about?
Yes, so this project consists of 2,600 feet of 8-inch water main replacement on Stone Avenue from 12th to 8th, and then on 8th from Stone to Gear. In fact, they had a water main leak on this section today. The project includes 27 water surfaces and a little bit of storm sewer replacement because of conflicts. The bids are due June 20th, with the work to be substantially complete by November 22nd of this year, with only leading the seeding and final cleanup to be done in the spring. There is a 2-year warranty period on this. And then lastly, the engineer's estimate of cost is $284,000.
Okay. Thank you, Melanie. So any questions, council, regarding the proposed contract and costs? Okay. I'll open the public hearing at this time and ask if there's any public comment on the documents or proposed costs. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and move to the approval of the proposed contract documents and estimated costs.
Move to approve.
Moved by Rasmussen,
Second.
second by Thompson. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, council will move to set a public hearing. This will be for June 24th, our next meeting, and this is for our city budget amendment. That'll be the last year's budgets just before we finish up our fiscal year at the end of June. So entertain a motion to set the public hearing for June 24th.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Thompson,
Second.
second by Anderson, I think was, Katie, did you have a second there first? Second by Anderson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Okay. And then next, we will set a public hearing for Monroe Avenue Street project, again for June 24th at 7 p.m. Melanie, anything you want to just alert the council to on that project, or is it? Matt?
Yeah, I guess it's just for the reconstruction of Monroe from 3rd Street to 4th Street.
3rd to 4th. Okay, so we'll set June 24th for a public hearing on that project. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Gandy,
Second.
second by Anderson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Thank you. Next, council, we have a professional services agreement with Shive Hattery. This is for the future project on Highway 1. And we have a representative from Shive Hattery here this evening. Nathan, if you'd come and discuss that with the council, please.
Thank you. I'm Nate Hardesty. I'm the project manager from Shive Hattery for this project. I just want to first take the opportunity to say thank you. We're excited for the opportunity to be here and work on this project and serve the city of Fairfield. So,
Could you describe for the audience the scope of the project also?
Yep, sure. So I'll walk you through the agreement here in a minute. First, I can talk about the project in general. So the project is a reconstruction of Highway 1 from Fillmore down to Libertyville Road. So that's a business district, commercial corridor, south intersection, Libertyville Road and Highway 1 or South Main Street intersection there. We're going to look at some intersection improvements. Could be maybe a traffic signal, maybe a roundabout to find out what's really best for that intersection. To make some changes from today. We're also going to consider the bypass ramps as we look at that and how that would be affected by any intersection improvements at Libertyville Road. The project itself, when it's done, it'll be an urban section. So today that's a real cross section, ditches on both sides. It'll be more urban when we're done. Curb and gutter, kind of like what's north of there, with a trail on one side and sidewalk on the other. Full reconstruction. Traffic will be maintained throughout as part of the agreement with the DOT. The DOT has actually funded the construction of the project for, I believe, 2022. So we're just now getting started on looking at what to do, specifically with that roundabout on the south end. So. Any questions on the scope of the project? If not, I'll kind of run through what's in the agreement that's in front of you today. All right, so there's 4 parts to the agreement that's in front of you. First, we're going to do some field survey. We're going to out and survey the whole corridor. That'll be survey crews out with equipment, shooting the curb and the gutter and the street center line, the ditches, all of that. We're also going to do some aerial surveying, so it'll be a drone to get some current aerial photography that goes in the background of the plans and helps us be a little bit more accurate. The second part of it's a traffic study. So I mentioned the intersection of Libertyville Road and South Main Street or Highway 1. We're going to do a study on that will determine how a traffic signal would work at that intersection, how a roundabout would work at that intersection, so we can come back to you and help you make some informed decisions. We'll also give what our recommendation would be for that improvement. Third part's functional design, so we're also going to look at the rest of the corridor and say what are the criteria we want to look at. What should the speed limit be? What should the rate of the curvature of the curves be? How wide should the trail be? Where's the road fit in there? And the last part is actually public engagement, some stakeholder meetings. So this is a busy corridor, this commercial corridor. There's lots of residents and businesses that only access from this corridor, so there's a lot of interested parties, I'm sure. We need to get out there and talk to those people. What are their concerns? What do we need to watch for as we put the plans together and the design? And also just general public. There'll be a public meeting this fall that we're kind of targeting timeline for.
Okay. Thank you. Council, any questions regarding the contents of the service agreement?
Can you point to where there's the possibility of a roundabout?
Yeah. Libertyville Road here and Highway 1. So I think that intersection is just one that's potentially needs some improvements. Today it's a two-way stop, so there's a stop sign on the side street. It's a through on the main route, so I think sometimes there's trouble getting access out of there. The area that is east of there, I think, is potential development area that would need better access to Highway 1 or more controlled intersection to not have a safety issue. So, like I said, we're going to look at roundabout or traffic signal there and put together how each would work. And part of the stakeholder engagement is to say, okay, how does that area, what is that going to look like? So we can try to generate a number of trips, how many cars we would expect coming in and out of there.
I don't believe Fairfield has any roundabouts, do they?
Nope.
Not yet. No.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's roundabout's a done deal or anything.
Right.
You know, we don't want to go into anything with a solution pick. We want to take a fair look at it, but that's under consideration. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So council, your action tonight then is to approve a resolution supporting the service agreement, and in that resolution does identify the funding sources for the project, and just very simply endorsing that agreement. So I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution for professional services with Shive Hattery.
So moved.
Moved by Toohill.
Second.
Second by Gandy. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Toohill?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Okay, Nathan, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Next, council, we have a resolution of support for a proposed development project. I'm going to ask our Economic Development Executive Josh Larrabee to give council some background on this project.
Good evening, Council. So what you're looking at tonight is Trafix Devices is working towards a 17,000 square foot expansion onto what was originally known as the late 1980s spec building. And they are going to be adding 2 rotocast molding machines. And so this will be a manufacturing expansion. And what we are working with them on is what's known as the High Quality Jobs Program through Iowa Economic Development Authority. The State Economic Development Office awards companies that are investing in Iowa, and they have to meet 2 criteria. One is they have to create high quality jobs, and they have to make capital investments that are going to stay here. So Trafix Device is doing that. Not only are they adding the 17,000 square feet, but they're also adding approximately 17 jobs. 5 of those jobs will qualify for the calculation of this program. And that's based on healthcare benefits, wages, things like that. Do you have any other questions? And the piece that we're considering tonight is the state requires a local match piece. The state says if we're stepping up to the plate with Iowa investment tax credits, we need the local municipality to participate and incentivize companies on the local level. Trafix, as most of you know, now operates without this expansion. They've started with 8,000 square feet and currently operate under close to 172,000 square feet, so this will increase that number. And the owner, Jack Culp, has been, from what I've seen, very incredible to Fairfield with expanding and adding jobs.
Right, and our Tyler Street expansion that we just closed out tonight too is part of the supporting that development.
Because this project, normally what we would ask for is the council to utilize its 3-year 100% property tax abatement policy that's already in place for commercial improvements. Because this expansion is in an existing urban renewal area, Iowa code under 427B says you can't abate taxes in an urban renewal TIF district area. So the tool that we're asking for is a 3-year 100% tax rebate, which is allowed. So this would meet the local match requirements, and we're estimating that would not exceed $150,000 of new increment that is rebated over the 3 years.
Right, and is that, as far as our vehicle to cover that rebate, is that covered through our TIF?
Correct.
Right.
So the new increment from this expansion, not in the existing tax base, just the new increment from the 17,000 square foot expansion would be, the council's considering tonight rebating those first 3 years back to Trafix to meet the local match requirement. And that would be done through the TIF that's already set up.
Right.
And this would be,
And the projected value is enough to meet the state requirement for a
Correct.
3-year period?
so we've been working with Allers and Cooney and John Morrissey and French Treneker. What we've put in the resolution of support is that Trafex would make a minimum of a $1.5 million investment in the facilities, so that's not including the equipment. And then we're asking for an approximate $150,000 rebate over the 3 years to meet that local match requirement. I do think his investment will exceed the $1.5 million investment in the facility, so a minimum of that. Does that answer your question?
It does,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. So, council, everyone understand the agreement that we will be making at this point? Obviously, long-term employer, I think over 30 years or close to 30 years in Fairfield right now, and their development has been steady, no question about that. And I think it's also good to make these kinds of investments with local companies that are expanding as well, because I think there's less risk in that in the long run because of their proven track record and their contribution to employment.
This will be something on the tax rolls for many years.
Yep. All right, council, so the resolution then would be a resolution of intent is to support. So I guess this means if the application is accepted, that basically triggers the commitment from the city.
Correct. So the state's looking for the city's initial support. Next steps, if the council does approve this tonight, I would work with Aaron Quaker, John, and we would move into a development agreement and iron out those details on both sides of the.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate the explanation. So council would entertain a motion to approve the resolution of intent to support the development project.
So moved.
Moved by Thompson.
Second.
Second by Rasmussen. Any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Okay, motion passes. Next, we'll move on to a resolution declaring official intent under the Treasury regulation to issue debt to reimburse the city for original expenses. And Aaron, if you can give the council background on what we're approving here.
Well, this is just a resolution that with our upcoming borrow for streetlights, for the airport and for the library, that if we incur costs prior to getting the money that for the borrow, we can reimburse ourselves for those costs. Most specifically, engineering costs from the airport is one of those things. If we start construction and somebody requests money prior to us getting this borrow done, which we should be able to get the borrow done by August, we can reimburse ourselves.
And again, this is part of the checklist of things that we need to have in place before we actually pull the trigger on borrowing. So that's part of what you're doing tonight by confirm this resolution, and then following that, we'll have something else, which, well, essentially will set the date for our next meeting. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution of intent to reimburse the city for original expenses.
So moved.
Moved by Gandy,
Second.
second by Toohill. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Thank you. Then council will set a public hearing for Monday, June 24th, our next meeting, to authorize the loan agreement for the issuance of the notes of $750,000 towards these projects. So I entertain a motion to approve the public hearing for June 24th.
So moved.
Moved
Second.
by Rasmussen, second by Thompson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign? Okay, thank you. And finally,
Are those identical?
I look at
No, one's.
No, one is the 75,000 for,
Oh,
I
yeah,
had to do that separately for the library
oh,
because of the
yes,
funding.
okay.
okay, and that $75,000 is, Rebecca?
That was for,
The infrastructure work at the library, it won't be that cost, but it's up to that amount.
Okay, so it's part of the,
It's
part of the
this-
total borrowing?
Yes.
Correct. Okay, so we'll set a public hearing for Monday, June 24th for the loan agreement for $75,000 for the Fairfield Public Library.
So moved.
Moved by Thompson,
Second.
second by Rasmussen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Okay. Thank you. Okay, next, we're going to have a public hearing in a second on the amendment number 2 to the Lincoln Avenue Urban Renewal Plan. Aaron, if you could tell us what's involved in this.
We're simply adding a project, which is a storm sewer project, to the urban renewal area so that we can get water out of that area and not just dump it into the farm field or to the field off to the east of that project. So we're going to control the water flow out with using some of the TIF dollars there for infrastructure.
Okay. Any questions, council, on that project? Then I'll open up the public hearing at this time and ask if there's anyone who would like to comment on the proposed amendment number 2. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll move on to approving the resolution to add this project to the Lincoln Avenue Urban Renewal Plan.
So
Is there a
moved.
motion to approve? Moved by Gandy,
Second.
second by Thompson. Any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Thank you. And then similarly, we have an amendment number 1 to add to the West Industrial Park. Aaron, what is that project?
That's actually a request from Trafix also. We're adding the project of actually adding a little bit of ground to the urban renewal area, which will be the intersection at 23rd and Burlington, so that we can add an intersection light there or a traffic light there to that intersection. It's just adding another project to the urban renewal area again.
Okay. There's also a public hearing, so we'll open up the public hearing at this time and ask if there's any public comment on the proposed amendment to this urban renewal area, amendment number 1. Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and ask for approval for the resolution to add this project.
So moved.
Moved by Anderson,
Second.
second by Toohill. Any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Okay, thank you. Council, in my report, I have 2 proposed board appointments. One to the library board, Margaret Kelly, whose term is expiring. I'd like to nominate Sherry Smith to join the library board. I'd ask for your approval for Sherry Smith.
So
Move to
moved.
approve.
Moved by Thompson, second by Rasmussen. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Thank you. And then also the 3 positions that we appoint to the CVB board. Larry Thompson has left the board and proposing Tony Webb to be approved to represent the CVB. So, motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Thompson,
Second.
second by Gandy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Thank you. We'll move to our committee reports, Ways and Means. Tom?
Ways and Means had a meeting tonight to basically review some proposed amendments for water, sewer, streets, the fees that are charged for various services, not the sewer and water usage fees, but the service fees that for various things to be performed. I think we agreed on those, but Mr. Morrissey needs a little more time before final approval, which will probably be at the next meeting.
Okay, so we'll have a published list of those fees as they're
Yes.
proposed.
And I think there's 1 or 2 we wanted to add to also.
Anything else, Tom?
No, that was it.
Great, thank you. As the next chance, we'll move to our administrator and department reports. I'm going to give an update on City Hall because it's coming apart. Melanie?
Starting Wednesday.
No, we just wanted to let the council know that we'll be starting this week. And so the public restrooms are going to be closed to the public during the construction. So as far as any other shutdowns or limited access, we do not have a schedule for that yet, and we'll keep the council up to date as we proceed.
And what's the projected time of construction?
The contract allows through the middle of September in order to get the project done. They think they'll spend about 2 months on the bathrooms, and then the rest of it will just be done while they're working on the bathrooms. So 3 months, I think the September date is reasonable. I have told them that they either need to start or finish not start or finish the outside work before RAGBRAI. So we will get that area patched, or we'll get everything replaced for RAGBRAI.
Okay, great. Before you go, Melanie, could you also update the council on the Petra Park at Tribune printing site?
Yes. I met with that contractor, Ferris Construction, who is doing that work a week or so ago, and they were planning on starting this week. It will probably be next week, but they'll be moving in soon. Again, their goal is to have some of the basics installed by RAGBRAI. There's going to be planters around the outside of the park. They want to have those done, even though there won't be anything planted in them. But that really rough curb tripping hazard that's there right now, the goal is to have that cleaned up in time for RAGBRAI. Yeah, they'll be moving on that here soon, hopefully, as well.
Great. Okay, thank you, Melanie. Appreciate it. Next, our RAGBRAI update. Councilman Halley.
All right, Jason, can you click that link? Thank you. Wanted to alert the council and the public, yeah, can you shrink it just a little bit, of a change in the beverage garden compared to 2013. So I can't remember what year it was, but one of the cities who's hosting RAGBRAI pushed back against the state alcohol division and said, we don't want to enclose our beverage garden. We want to make it more open. And they set a precedent, and now everyone is doing that. So that red boundary is the beverage garden, which is quite different from 2013 when the beverage garden was a double fenced in area, essentially just on the east side of Central Park. And I was talking to Mayor Malloy about it. And he was one of the people who didn't appreciate that you couldn't be in front of the stage unless you were inside the beverage garden, which would exclude anyone under 21. Not a problem this year. People who, well, I could just hear John Revelinsky's voice right now. Were he here, you know, expressing his disappointment in this. There will be people walking around with open containers in that entire area. The benefit is no snow fence, no blocking the front of businesses, a more open, expanded area, and according to law enforcement who have been dealing with this, it's easier to enforce in a situation like this. People get kind of rowdy when they're in what's called a beer jail, and they're forced into a little area and drinking with other people. So
it is a good jail to be in, though.
If you're going to be in jail,
better than yours, right, Chief?
Yes, definitely.
So this map is just very preliminary. It'll be more fleshed out in terms of what vendors will be where. But you'll have vendors on Burlington, south of the square, vendors on the west side, both blocks of Main. The Kaibos, that's the nickname for porta potties here in Iowa. Keep your bowels. No, wait, I can't remember. It stands for something.
I think it's a military term.
Yeah. So those are porta potties that'll be in those streets. And then there about the middle of Court Street, mid side of the square, will be where you ID and get tickets. You have to buy tickets that you then take to that little star area in the southeast to get your beverages. And then that beverage storage is just where all that extra booze is going to be kept until hopefully we sell it all, because that's how this event's essentially paid for, is beverages. There will also be non-alcoholic beverages for other people as well at the vendor locations. But just wanted to let everyone know that's the way it's going to be this year. So, and if you want to follow up with me or Tammy Jones or Elisa, forget her last name. We'll get more information for you for the paper, but this was my update of the council meeting for
Okay.
now.
Thank you. Also, Council, as you're probably aware, that we did have about 50 riders that were doing the RAGBRAI route pre-ride in Fairfield, and they're very excited, and I think they were impressed with the preparation thus far. So before we know it, it'll be July 25th.
Will be.
Yes. Okay, Council, our final part of the agenda is we're going to have a presentation from Maharishi University of Management students in sustainability. Yes, you can clap. It was 10 years ago that we published our 10-year strategic plan, and we were approached by the university and this class to do a review and an update of what it is we've accomplished and what the impact of that has been. You know, one of the part of the vision statement for the plan itself was to demonstrate sustainability in the community so that people could see what, you know, renewable energy distributed throughout the community looks like, or local produce and being available more places. And really it's been a broad community effort. In the middle of this period, we had that 15-month program with Alliant Energy where we focused with them on energy conservation and set a goal to reduce our total energy usage by 4% within the community, and accomplished 8.5%. We also were the only community in Iowa to complete that program, in other words, meet their goals. So we know that there's been a lot accomplished, but hopefully the students have dug out some things that will surprise us and make us even more proud of it. So without further ado, introduce Dr. Scott Harriet from the university.
Thank you very much, council members. My name is Scott Harriet. I'm a professor of business administration, recently dean of the College of Business at Maharishi University of Management, now provost of the university and overseeing all the academic programs. But in my capacity as a professor of a course on metrics for sustainable business, I have a team of fine students here who took the last couple months after a conversation with Aaron about how we could get information regarding the city to, in a way, feel the pulse of the city around sustainability matters, do what would be a sustainability report for the city. As the mayor said, this is following on the Go Green plan, which was originally in 2009 with a 10-year horizon. Now we're looking at the next 10 years. Interestingly enough, during the time of our work, the LEED brand, which is familiar with green buildings, LEED Platinum, LEED Gold, LEED Silver, LEED has now entered into the certification of cities for their sustainability. And so we chose to look at the LEED for Cities metric and see how does Fairfield look on that. I'm going to turn this over to the students. I'll introduce them first by name. And I'll give you one bit of advance notice about our presentation. We will not be asking you for any money, but we'll have some recommendations for how to proceed at the end of our presentation. So with us tonight, Chris Evergreen will be talking about integrated planning and leadership. Ashma Gautam in the back will be speaking about natural systems and ecology. Susie Mizuraka, also in the back, talking about quality of life. And Alok Srivastava in the front here about energy, sustainable energy, and greenhouse gas emissions. Chris, would you like to begin?
Thank you, Dr. Harriet. So we learned a lot throughout the process as we regarded Fairfield as our client. We put our sustainability consultant hats on and endeavored to collect as much information as we could to determine how Fairfield would fare in this LEED for Cities rating system. We gained experience with city employees, interfacing with multiple departments. We compiled our findings in a report we are submitting to the city with the details and the highlights of this presentation. We have some more data coming in, so we'll be sending that to you next week. And so in the realm of Fairfield sustainability goals, may we present the Lead for Cities and evaluation, analysis, and recommendations. We have first an introduction to Lead for Cities. Can you go back one? We have first an introduction to Lead for Cities, the evaluation criterion that we looked at in detail, an overall analysis, our key takeaways, and including recommendations for the city, and then our final conclusions. Next slide. So just to keep this in mind, when you look at a city, it's like reading the hopes, aspirations, and pride of everyone who built it. That's by Hugh Newell Jacobson, who's a esteemed architect in America. And next up, we're going to have Ashma.
Good evening, everyone. As Dr. Scott mentioned before, my name is Ashma, and I'll be starting with briefly about what LEED is. So LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Conservation Design, and it was officially introduced in the 2000 by the US Green Building Council. So briefly, when I talk about it in simple terms, this certification means healthier, more productive places to live, learn, work, and play, as well as less stress on the environment by encouraging energy and resource-efficient cities and communities. Next up, so you might have a question, why Lead for Cities, not Go Green Plan or Star Communities or other certified organizations? That's because LEED was introduced in April 2019 as a successor to Star Communities. I'll give you an example of Ottumwa. So Ottumwa was a Star community before 2019 of April. So once it became the successor to LEED, it also fell under LEED certified community. So Ottumwa is an example of how Star community, when acquired by LEED, Ottumwa advantage with both LEED as well as Star community. And LEED for Building Success, 80,000 projects in 162 countries, including 32,500 certified commercial projects. So we're just thinking, why reinvent the wheel? Why should we not just go with the Go Green Plan that was made in 2010? Or should we also move forward with something which is a standardized certification as LEED or Star Community? So we're just going to discuss further what LEED helps us to do as a city or a community as a whole. And thank you. So more than 90 cities around the globe are listed with LEED for Cities, as I mentioned earlier, including Ottumwa. And we also have a set of cities. Thank you. We have a set of cities in Iowa with a sustainability certification. So the first three are 4-star certified community, which include Dubuque, Iowa City, and Davenport. And the next one is Des Moines, which is a 3-star certified community. The reason why Ottumwa and Cedar Rapids are just Star certified community is because they were certified after LEED became a successor of Star communities. So that is why they are just Star certified communities right now. And moving ahead, how does the certification level work? As Dr. Scott mentioned earlier, that we'll be talking about different sections of transportation, energy, natural resources. So every section has prerequisites and requirements that gains points on the basis of how the city has done on the exact topic. So we have four. So we have 4 points earned through this. So first is the only certified part where we need 40 to 49 points. Second is the silver where we need 50 to 59, gold needs 60 to 79, and platinum needs 80 plus. Before we start with the LEED certification standards, Chris Evergreen will come forward and speak about how far the Go Green Plan has gone. I request Chris to come forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashma. So we wondered what the progress was for the Go Green Plan, and I called the former sustainability coordinator, Scott Tim, and inquired if he had tracked his progress while he was in the role. He informed me that Anna Bruin, the former MUM alumni and Iowa State University alumni, had done her master's thesis on tracking the progress of the Go Green Plan, essentially, using Fairfield as a small city case study of sustainability. So this is from her master's thesis, which was done in 2014. Scott confirmed that this is the most recent progress report of the Go Green Plan. The highlights would be that 72% at the time was in progress or achieved, and 44% was in process. 23% hadn't even begun or just needed attention. So she reviewed this with about 5 other people. They had different criterion for what that meant, but when Scott Tim left the position of sustainability coordinator, the movement on achieving the objectives set out slowed down, and now we're not sure where we're at. Yeah, so the Go Green objectives, though, are still very pertinent. They still align with the objectives that we find important today, including the greenhouse gas emissions goals. We should still be pursuing the same rate of reduction as the Go Green Plan had set in 2009. Go ahead. So the first section starts out with integrative planning and leadership. It's one of 40 sections. We're only going to go through about 6 sections just to give you the highlights. We have these packets here that you can follow along with more details as we go through kind of quickly. The requirements, there are requirements for each one, so just 1 point, you have to do the 4 requirements. We're on our way with having the comprehensive plan with Fairfield Forever. We have had previous success with an interdisciplinary team in strategic planning with the Go Green Plan, so we are primed for collaborative community planning. We are required through Lead for Cities to do 2 workshops, one being a gap analysis and 2 being a strategic lead roadmap, and our final report will serve as a very close gap analysis minus essentially the cost of everything. So if we did decide to pursue it, we would get 1 point. And in the corner of this, you'll see 1 out of 1. So in future ones, it'll be the first one is how many points we think we can get, and the last number is how many points are possible out of there. So the next section I wanted to highlight is green building policy and incentives. There are 3 options here. The first 2 are about requiring or having and requiring Lead for Cities or LEED certifications for new buildings and for city-owned and operated buildings, which I didn't think would be too pertinent. So I focused on the third option, which is tracking annual energy data for at least half of the municipal buildings that are larger than 5,000 square feet over 3 years and reporting it in an approved system. The approved system that LEED has is called ARC, and in our LEED for LEED points details chart, there are some categories that have ARC there, and we can't tell how many points we would get or not get because you have to report your data in the system, and to be able to access the system, you have to pay $5,000 up front. So that's one thing that we weren't able to go through exactly. But in terms of this criterion, the energy is available through our Alliant bills on paper, and it would require a person to go through and track the most recent 3 years and look for specifically things like the city police, the fire departments, the library, the water treatment plants, Sondheim Recreation Center. We have to go through and get all of the data from those. So it's a pretty detail-oriented, laborious task, but it's possible. So we could get at least 1 out of 4 points for that. And then there's also a potential to get another point if you had all the private buildings that were 20,000 square feet and above also reporting their data, but that would require a collaboration with private entities. Next up, Ashima to talk about natural system and ecology.
Thank you, Chris. So as you can see on the corner of the thing, we have earned a point of 8 out of 10. So this describes a natural system and ecology, and Fairfield has exceptionally done very well on natural system and ecology. There were 4 sections of it. They are named as green spaces, natural resources conservation and restoration. The next slide will have light pollution and resilience planning. So firstly, on the green spaces, the LEED's guidelines mention that the requirement is a minimum area of not less than 7,212 square feet, but we overachieved it with our parks and bike trails, and the city has over 11.7 million square feet, which is an example to rest of the cities in the United States and the world. And also the percentage of dwelling units which have green spaces within 0.5 mile is 97.68%, when we were when the criteria only mentioned us that we needed 70% of it. So we have set out an example to the rest of the city on how we can work on the natural system and ecology. Likewise, we gained 2 points on that, and moving forward, we have natural resource conservation and restoration, where we had to maintain an acreage of 861 square foot per person, and we also overachieved that by 1,346 square feet per person. Next slide. One thing that we can improve on this is the light pollution. So light pollution is the amount of pollution that light creates, the outdoor lights create. So Fairfield had to achieve, as a requirement of LEED for City guidelines, a reading of sky quality meter reading of 21.2 or greater. We could only achieve that on the outskirts of the city, where there were less residential area, but within the city we went up to 28. So one recommendation that we could use is placing motion sensors on essential outdoor lamps to reduce light pollution. So that way we can gain 2 points, and on natural system and ecology we could have been 10 out of 10, but sadly only on the light pollution part we lagged behind a bit. And on the resilience planning, we were required to identify the environmental context and conduct a vulnerability and capacity assessment for climate change risk, natural and man-made hazards and extreme events, and to develop a plan for it. We do not have extreme events as natural, but the only event that reoccurs through the research was flood. And the risk is at north of city along Crow Creek between Reservoir Number 1 and the Fairfield Cemetery. So 4 points were claimed for it, and we could gain 8 out of 10 on natural system and ecology. And through our LEED for City guys, we also understood that environmental natural system also affects the quality of life. So to speak further about it, Susan Mizurika is going to be here, and she's going to explain us on the quality of life. Thank you.
Hi. So the requirements for quality of life were develop a brief history, noting critical points of change for the overall area and specific neighborhoods, taking into account age cohorts, racial, ethnic composition, using standard categories for U.S. reporting, remarks on the prominent social cultural groups such as migrants, religious groups, and linguistical isolated. Fairfield lacks documented sources when it comes to LEED for Cities requirements. Quality of life performance has the potential for all 6 points with the proper ARC calculations of air quality, but it's not quite sure yet. Something definitely that's considered with quality of life is that Fairfield's just a very small city, so to consider all of the requirements that they have for a big city like Los Angeles or Chicago or St. Louis, we just don't have that information documented. So it would have to be something that would be implemented in future LEED for City documentation. Next will be Block.
Good evening. So for transportation and land use is the section, and then this is another example of why Fairfield, being a small city, scores only 1 out of 15 points in this entire section. I'll go over the requirements, which was to report the vehicle miles traveled within the city limits. We have that data, but it's only available from 2015, according to the Iowa DOT. And LEED for Cities requires it for the most recent calendar year, so we cannot claim any points there. The next section is to have compact mixed-use transit-oriented complete centers, which requires access to transit facilities, and access to 10 diverse use. Again, not having a public transportation system, we cannot claim any points here and in the next section, which is access to quality transit. Access to alternative fuels. We do have 4 electric vehicle charging stations, 2 at MUM, 1 at Hy-Vee, and 1 at Come and Go. But it is not over the threshold, which is 2% of the number of public parking spaces. So therefore, we cannot claim any points here. And then 2 alternative fuel stations are available for E85 biofuel, which is Agriland and Come and Go. This is the only indicator where we get 1 point. And the next requirement is to have at least 4 smart mobility and transportation policy, such as automated speed enforcement in 80% of the roads, GPS for public transport, automatic ticketing system for public transport. Again, we do not have any of that, so we cannot claim any points here. And for just a recommendation for lead point, we'll have to add, for just 1 lead point, we'll have to add 6 more electric charging stations, which is unreasonable. So. And then the next one. The next section is energy and GHG emissions. So here, the first requirement is a prerequisite for no points. It is power access to 100% of the population, continuous monitoring, and resiliency for critical loads. The next is energy, reporting the Scope 1 and Scope 2 GHG emissions for the city. The energy efficiency standard requires 70% of the street lights to meet ANSI energy efficiency standards, or 50% of the water pumps to meet Department of Energy conservation standards, or the third option is to have a distributed energy system in place for direct supply of steam, hot water, and chilled water. The renewable energy section requires on-site renewables, off-site renewables, or renewable energy credits to be owned by the city or the utility provider, not the residents. And then the low carbon economy requires us to report on the GHG intensity, which is greenhouse gas emissions of the city divided by the GDP of the city. The last section is grid harmonization. There are 3 options, one of which is having a net metering policy in place, which we have by Alliant Energy. So this is the only section where we get 2 points. We can move to the next slide. So Fairfield fulfills all the prerequisite, and then annual GHG emissions is over 146,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent, which is about 13.74 tons per capita. And this indicator is actually worth 14 points, but we cannot get this score because it requires the ARC software, and as Chris mentioned, it costs $5,000 to start with. In the streetlights, 408 out of 728 streetlights are LEDs, but there is no policy to meet ANSI energy efficiency standards. We don't have a policy for water pumps to meet the Department of Energy conservation standards again, and there is no distributed energy system in place, so we cannot claim points in this entire section. The on-site renewables owned by the city buildings cover 0.078% of the city's demand, the entire city's demand, and which is below the 2% threshold for points. And again, the off-site renewables owned by the utility provider, Alliant Energy covers 16% of its total energy supplied from renewables, which is again below the threshold of 60%. The GDP data is not available for the city the size of Fairfield, so therefore we cannot report on GHG emissions, GHG intensity. And as I mentioned, we have a net metering policy provided by Alliant, so we get two points here in this section. And next we have Susan with the, I have the recommendation for additional lead points. It is to have the new, the street lights to use energy efficiency standards, and use the Department of Energy conservation standard for the water pumps. Then increase the city-owned renewables. This goes up to 6 points, so we can claim up to 6 points in this section if we install more on-site renewable systems. Then measure GDP and report GHG intensity for 2 points. And if we can show reduction in the GHG intensity over 3 years, we get another 2 points. Next is Susan to talk about the overall analysis. Thank you.
So is LEED right for Fairfield? The price of LEED for cities, the registration's $5,000, pre-certification's $10,000, labor for research is $5,000, and then certification review, you have to continue to ask them for more information. Estimated LEED for cities total is $20,000 starting price, not including all the recommendations. LEED for cities, will it work? It is designed for big cities. There's a lot of environmental, not enough social, we found. Humans that inhabit the city are not healthy and living a healthy personal life, then they're not going to care about sustainable living or sustainability. So we found that it's best to take care of the social elements, especially in small cities or even big cities. And there was just not enough focus on it. Expensive but possible to get certified. Certification is not free. It's untold costs and purchasing needed recommendations for basic certification. Unrealistic goals for small town. Not enough data, too much money, coordination position needed are all things that would need to be presented or be established and considered when continuing on with LEED. Key takeaways. Next up is Chris.
We'd like to thank you for listening to our findings. It was a really interesting experience to go through and collect the data, which is our biggest educational opportunity here. Now, how do we move forward being informed by LEED for Cities? There are a few major takeaways. One is, if you want to go to the next slide, you might know who John Eichert is, a renowned sustainable agricultural economist who lives in town, and he's been my teacher from time to time. This is a model of sustainability that he uses. It's different from the traditional model where you might have the 3 pillars of sustainability as 3 legs of a stool, or even intersecting like a Venn diagram with the center of being sustainability. Here we have the explanation that everything exists within the environment. The society wouldn't exist without the environment, and the economy wouldn't exist without the society. The reason I point this out is because you want to use socially sustainable practices when pursuing sustainability goals. So social sustainability is one of the least known areas of sustainability, but is one of the most important because you can have all the goals you want, but if you don't have the people together to pursue and achieve them, then you won't, make any progress, which is the most important thing. So I just wanted to illuminate the definition of social sustainability. It has 3 main aspects. One being place-based. So for us, it's Fairfield or Southeast Iowa. 2 would be process-oriented, which means everybody is aware of the process that is involved in the process. They are able to know where they're at in the process, how it's going to go. And then 3 is being fully integrated, which essentially is using all of your stakeholders, not just the ones that hold the power or the purse strings, but also those that are going to be affected, and anybody who has any reason to be a stakeholder, you want to have their voices included. So with that, I wanted to present this model, if you want to go next, using the idea of using appreciative inquiry for sustainability planning. The theory of appreciative inquiry was presented in '86 by David Cooperrider. It's been used by many large organizations like Hewlett-Packard, BP, Green Mountain Coffee Roasters. Even in 2004, Kofi Annan used it in a UN global summit to bring together over 500 CEOs to unite the strengths of markets with the power of universal ideals. Now, appreciative inquiry focuses on asking the right questions to illuminate the positive core of an organization or group of people. So what I have done, and you have an example of one stage of appreciative inquiry in your packets. It's called questions. These were asked of Amy Van Beek, who is the co-founder of Ideal Energy, as you know. And I encourage you to read through those because what it does is it asks us the right questions. Actually, Michael, can I see your example? So appreciative inquiry is strengths-based Thank you. It increases engagement. It has proven results, and it's informative or transformative. So like the first question, reflecting back on the Go Green plan, can you recall a time where you were inspired by an objective or a goal? What was the situation? What inspired you? Who was involved? These type of questions get people's positive energy moving forward, and you want that being able to like obtain that information, and then if you asked everybody that was involved, and then you wrote out the positive core, it's called mapping the positive core, you would find what was the strength of the Go Green plan, what made it work, as opposed to why didn't it work. So there is 4 stages. The defining stage is kind of the initial important stage where you choose the topic of inquiry that you want to illuminate. The discover stage is where you ask questions, you ask people to you ask for the best of what is by focusing on times of organizational excellence. The dream phase is an energizing exploration of what might be and expanding the best of what is. So you get people together to collectively explore their hopes and dreams of what the organization would ideally be. The design phase is where you ground the vision, and then the destiny phase is where you specifically have committees and organizational commitments to move forward. Instead of using a consultancy firm from outside, being able to use an appreciative inquiry model is something that we can do ourselves without a lot of expense. So just if you have any questions about that, this example is a good one to read through. And I want to bring up a lock here to talk about a climate action plan.
So while doing the GHG study, as per the LEED requirements, we faced a lot of challenges which resulted in inaccurate figures. For example, the old VMT data, it was only available from 2015. The unclear geographical boundaries, because Alliant Energy gave us the data with the Fairfield service address, which goes beyond the city limits, and we couldn't get the actual city data. And we couldn't get information on the other scope 1 source of emissions, such as propane, kerosene, or fuel oil. And we could not consider that due to unavailability of data. And again, we saw that we didn't do very well in the energy and GHG section. But since Fairfield is committed to sustainability, as we see, we suggest a customized climate action plan that is suitable for a city the size of Fairfield, which is to track our GHG emissions and goals. And how we recommend is, so here is what Ottawa did for their GHG study. They considered the emissions done by the municipal government and the public schools. So all the city-owned buildings and the city-owned buildings and vehicles, and the public school-owned buildings and vehicle. So what we suggest, adding on to the existing Ottawa has done, we recommend to include the large employers in town, the Mercy School, MUM University, and then the large manufacturing and commercial firms. So we can require them to report on the GHG emissions individually and allow them to decide their own greenhouse gas reduction goals and track progress, but they have to report to the city annually, which will keep us updated with the data. The IPCC, which is an intergovernmental body of UN, says that if we want to limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, we have to reach carbon neutrality by 2050 and reduce emissions by 45%, by 2030 from the 2010 baseline. The Go Green Plan from 2009 had a goal of 40% reduction from 2010, which is a very progressive goal, but we want to suggest to update it and to 45% to be in line with the UN's goal, so that we're doing well for the city. And when we said that we want the large employers to report their GHG data, the city can acknowledge good performance by giving them an award or recognition, something like that. That's one of our suggestions to keep them motivated. And then it's Susan for the final conclusions.
Leads for cities is not recommended to pursue due to the high cost and other. Okay. Fairfield should pursue annual reporting of GHG emissions and customize recommendations from the community, utilize social sustainability models from concrete goals and action plans. We found that Fairfield can be a leader in sustainable small cities because of the entrepreneurial nature of Fairfield and how we've had pretty amazing sustainable companies come from Fairfield already. There's job opportunities with it. It attracts residents, leads change for other small cities, and boosts the economy. Fairfield Capital for Entrepreneurs brings jobs, helps economy. And I'm going to ask Dr. Scott to come up next.
In your packet, there is a page of recommendations that the students have come forward with. But let me just summarize with a few key points. So what we found was that the Lead for Cities metric really isn't going to serve Fairfield's needs. We can create our own goals, and that would be through a process similar to what was done with Go Green in 2009, bringing together community members, organizations committed to sustainability, and so forth, setting new goals for the next 10 years. And drawing upon community participation and volunteer spirit, this idea that the larger manufacturing and commercial firms could be encouraged, not required, but encouraged to make a climate commitment, to participate in collecting their data about greenhouse gas emissions. What gets measured is what gets managed. And one of the points that didn't enable Go Green to really succeed was that there was no continual monitoring of achievements. So we're thinking at least every 2 years, and ideally every year, there would be a measurement, taking metrics of the city's sustainabilities. And that this can be done probably through volunteer efforts and through contributed efforts of the university. MUM can help in at least 3 ways. I teach my course on metrics for sustainability every year. And having a team of students to come and update or help organize, help collect information from around the city can be done. MUM can train the key participants in these larger organizations within the city, in the local government, in the public schools, the university itself, the large manufacturing and commercial firms. Get them to know how to track their own sustainability metrics, which would feed into an annual or biannual report of the city. And helping Fairfield become a leader in the clean energy economy. It's one of the great things that we can accomplish in the city is by making Fairfield, as the students said, a leader in small city sustainability. And a key element of that is creating jobs around this clean energy economy. I'm happy to report to you that 2 weeks ago, MUM hired a fresh PhD from the University of Iowa who had gotten his degree in mechanical engineering and who was studying renewable energy systems, in particular the biomass electric generating systems, those that burn, say, corn residue or burn elephant grass and such, and use that to generate electric energy. It's a completely renewable fuel system. We don't have this young fellow completely scheduled with courses. I want to get him writing grant proposals and thinking of ideas for technologies that can be commercialized and that can be built into companies. So that's another way that the university can help to create a center for research and a center for commercialization of technologies that will facilitate these goals. So we think that without asking any money of the city, but asking for the time, attention, and organization of our city members, that we can begin a planning process over the next several months that would result in a new plan, a Go Green 2030 plan, and continue the successes that we've had from the efforts begun 10 years ago. Thank you to you all.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. Council, any questions for the presenters this evening? Great presentation. We really appreciate it. I completely appreciate the frustration that came out of it also, because a lot of times these programs are looking for ways to, get to elements and data within our city that we really don't have access to yet. I think if you kind of creatively plow through that from an administrative standpoint, we could get a lot more points on that. I'm also really, the city and its impact is not as large as the greater community. I think the percentage of that impact is small enough to where I think to see our city discounted for all of the other things that have been created within the city. 3 solar companies creating, over 100 jobs, over 4 megawatts of distributed solar production. I mean, if we don't get 30 points for that alone, it's just something wholly unfair about going through this process. When we went through it, we just understood that, just changing the culture for everyone to look in their own way, how they can make that sustainable contribution. And we've had, a lot of people step up in that area. We can do more. We can promote more. And I think, engaging the community in a process again is something that we can do. It is a lot of work. The first time we did it, we asked 20 people to spend, a full day a month for a year putting together a plan. And we had, professional writers who put that together. So it's no small task. But it's a great reminder of what that inspiration initially created within the community and what's possible going forward. So we appreciate your presentation and the work that you've done, and hopefully you all get good grades. So, Professor. So, Council, if we don't have any other business, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. But before we do, I'll just wanted to wish a happy birthday to Councilman Paul Gandy, and we have some cake for you in the back. So happy birthday, Paul.
Happy birthday.
And entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Toohill.
Second.
Second by Anderson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Meeting adjourned.